Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from SegaCDUniverse.com. This is a video response to a great YouTuber that I check out a lot. His name's Stu, aka NinjaBearHug. He's very funny, and I like his accent a lot. I always say that in my videos. He's amusing. I don't mean that in a condescending way, by the way, Stu. I'm being sincere. So, he had done a video of his top 10 favorite platformer games. If you know me, if you watch any of my other videos, I'm not really a big platformer guy. When I was a kid, I liked them a lot, and they kind of just don't do it for me anymore. However, there have been some unique ones over the years that I really have enjoyed. I'm not going to do a top 10. I think I actually have more like 13 of them. Funny for someone who isn't a platformer fan. But I'm just going to name them and just briefly tell you what I like about them, or what, why I like them. The first one I'm going to mention is Popful Mail on the Sega CD. Oh, before I get into the list, most of these games can span different genres. Like, for instance, Popful Mail, it's a platformer. You're jumping, you're trying to make jumps and collect things, but you're buying items, leveling your character, talking to people. So it's definitely like RPG or action RPG, but it's also a platformer. So some of these are going to kind of dip into other categories. I didn't go for strict platformer. So Popful Mail is my first one on the Sega CD. It's like an anime kind of game. It's got jumping, sort of like a Mario type game. The fighting is sort of like kind of like that second Zelda game where it's like side-scrolling and you hit things. What was the other thing about it? You go to shops and you buy things and upgrade things, but there's a lot of platforming sections. You have to jump from like tree to tree or whatnot to get to the boss and things like that. It's a really great Sega CD game. I don't believe it's gotten ported or anything like that over the years. I think it might have been on like some computer console or something at one point, but I'm not even sure about that. So check out Popful Mail if you have a Sega CD and you want like an action RPG platformer. Secondly, and this one was also named by Kid Shoryuken, who I really like on YouTube, Gex. Gex is up there for me. It's very difficult. I have it on the 3DO. I don't believe I have it on the PlayStation 1 anymore, but I think I did at one point. You have this lizard, and you're like addicted to TV, and you get sucked into the TV, and then you have to get out. But he's quoting movies throughout the game. He can use his like lizard abilities and like climb on a wall sideways. He spits fire, like the way Mario throws fireballs. There's like a lot of like movie references and stuff, so I really like that, and I like his kind of like wise-ass tongue-in-cheek humor. Another one I really like is The Goonies 2 on the NES. Robman from the Happy Console Gamer, I believe, did a video the other day about The Goonies 2, and I remember as a kid, and I still am, I was a huge Goonies fan. I think if you grew up in the 80s, you probably saw The Goonies and loved it. And they made a Goonies 2 game, and everyone was like confused, or I was confused. Does this mean there's a second movie coming out, or is there a second movie I missed? Are they calling it 2 because the first one was the movie and the second one's the game? I mean, I was totally confused. In the end, it happened to be that in Japan, there was a Goonies game that was more like the, let's mention Mario again, kind of like the Mario arcade game, where you're Mario and Luigi and you just have to, you're on one screen, and you're hitting turtles and going through pipes. It was like that. So the sequel is you're Mikey and you're trying to save all your Goonies friends that have been captured, and you're going. This was kind of a weird one because it spanned different genres too. It was primarily a platformer, but you hit things like a yo-yo, and you got different items. I think you had a slingshot at one point, and you go into doors, almost like Shadowgate on the NES, and it would go first person, sort of like Friday the 13th on the NES. You go first person into these rooms and you have to look around and talk to people and stuff. It's really difficult, but that's a really fun game too. I like the Goonies 2 on the NES, as long as you have, as long as you can play the 8-bit games and not be too harsh on them because of the graphics at this point. Another one of my favorites, I didn't really know where to put this. This was a weird one. I'm assuming it's platformer, but Toe Jam and Earl 3. What was it, the subtitle to it? Toe Jam and Earl 3, was it Panic on Funkatron, or was that 2? Hold on. Might have just been Toe Jam and Earl 3. Mission to Earth. Okay, Panic on Funkatron was 2. They really did a good rendition of the Toe Jam and Earl series on 3, which was on the Xbox. It was initially, I believe, supposed to be on the Dreamcast. It was on the first Xbox. It's really a quirky game. You're these aliens, and you're always like looking for something. Whether it be, I think in the initial game, it was for the first 2 games I love as well. The second game was a side scroller, and the first game was a top-down kind of isometric platformer adventure game. You can't even kind of label them. But the third one I would call a platformer. You get wings and you fly around, and you beat up enemies, and you have to collect items. I forget what in the end. I know the first game you're collecting parts of your ship. I don't remember in the third one what you're looking to retrieve. But it's a great platformer game. It still holds up. The graphics are pretty nice. They have a really like a funny, quirky sense of humor, and it's a pretty long game too, from what I remember. I never beat it. I got close. So that's another one of my favorites, is Toe Jam and Earl. The whole series, but I'm kind of talking about 3 because it's more recent. Okay, I added this one in there, but I don't know if I'd consider it platform, so I'm going to take that out. Another one of my favorites that Kid Shoryuken also mentioned was Kid Chameleon. Kid Chameleon was a great Sega Genesis or Mega Drive game, depending on where you're located. And you were this kid who got sucked into a video game world, and you're able to get different abilities by... Oh, my nose is just so bad today. By getting different masks. So you get a mask, like a samurai helmet, you turn it to a samurai, and you have like samurai abilities. You'd get... one was like a Jason Voorhees type mask, and you'd become like you'd have like a different weapon, whatever it was, and it would give you almost like Mega Man in a way, where you'd have different abilities to do different things that you needed at certain points. Great game. I loved it as a kid. I still love it. Really, really different stuff. Anything with a video game in a video game, you got me right there. I love it. Another series I really liked was Flashback. They also did a sequel to Out of This World. And then the third one was called, was it Another World? Or I don't remember what it was called. Flashback was like supposedly like a loose prequel. It's like a side-scrolling platformer, but it's also got puzzle elements, and you have to find items and use them at certain areas to progress. Out of This World is where you're on an alien planet, and you kind of have to, from trial and error, figure out how to get past certain points. Where Flashback has some trial and error, but you also have to find stuff. And that was also on an alien planet, but it was more sci-fi looking, more futuristic. You get like different things. So those were on the, they were definitely both on the Super Nintendo. I believe they were on the Genesis as well, and they were both on the Sega CD. I would probably recommend the Sega CD version due to the graphics and the music upgrade. Sonic CD is a great one. I'm sure everyone knows that one and plays it. I'm not a huge Sonic fan anymore. But Sonic CD really is fun. It holds up still. I put this in there, but I don't know if this is considered a platformer. I'm playing currently Uncharted Golden Abyss on my Vita, and I'm having a great time with it. And the reason I would consider it a platformer, even though there's shooting aspects and puzzle elements, is you have to, on the screen, or you don't have to, you can use the analog stick, you can touch the screen to move up things. So if you're climbing up a building, you go like this and swipe your hand and he jumps. I'm finding it to be a great game. I've never played any Uncharted titles before. They look darker. I've never played any Uncharted titles before, so it's kind of like an Indiana Jones motif. I'm having a good time with it, and I'm about halfway through the game right now, I think. So definitely a cool game. I got 1, 2, 3 more I'm going to name. Little Nemo the Dream Master on the NES, sort of reminiscent of Kid Chameleon in a way. It looks childish, but it's very difficult. The reason I say it reminds me of Kid Chameleon is because you have to do things with different abilities, except instead of getting masks or altering yourself this time, I believe, from what I remember as a kid, you jump on different animals, and the different animals have different abilities. But it was really cutesy, the music was really good, the animals were really interesting. I think one was like a frog, then one was like something you would swim, I remember. It was just a really hard game. If you like difficult platformers, that's a fun one. And my final 2 are also on the original Nintendo. Wrath of the Black Manta was sort of like a Ninja Gaiden type game, or Ninja Gaiden, depending on how you pronounce it. You jump around and beat people up and throw throwing stars, and there's these big bosses. I remember the first boss, his name was Tiny, and he was like the size of the whole screen. But I would definitely call it a platformer because you're always jumping around and trying to get different levels in different areas of the stage, really underrated game, and for its time I really loved it as a kid. Haven't played it in years. And finally, the other one is on the NES, and it was an arcade game originally, but I believe the game is different in the arcade. Karnov. I believe you're like a Russian fire breather, and you're able to like pick up items off the floor, and like you're also really funny looking. You're in those like big pants, those big like Missy Elliott pants, and this huge mustache. I guess this is kind of appropriate at this point. And you're bald and you're very muscular, like a strong man, and you can like find up items to like make ladders and spit fire and beat up enemies. But you definitely like jumping around, trying to get different areas and collect things. So those are my favorite platformers over the years. As I said, I'm not a huge platforming fan anymore. And I know some of these kind of dip over into other categories, but if you haven't checked them out, definitely check them out. And on top of that, if you haven't checked out Kid Shoryuken and NinjaBearHug, check them out as well. They're bloody brilliant. So thanks guys for watching. It's Vampire Mike from SegaCDUniverse.com. Be good.